Kazakhstan and the Russian Empire, annexation, resistance, and transformation 18th-19th centuries. The vast steppes of Kazakhstan, once home to powerful nomadic tribes and independent Khanates, underwent a dramatic transformation between the 18th and 19th centuries. What began as a series of strategic alliances and protectorates with the Russian Empire gradually evolved into full-scale annexation and imperial control. This shift not only redefined Kazakhstan's political boundaries, but also reshaped its cultural identity, economy, and social structure for generations to come. The nomadic legacy of the Kazakh Khanate. By the early 1700s, the Kazakh steppe was divided into three tribal confederations, known as the Three Zhuzes: the Great Jews in the south, the Middle Jews in central Kazakhstan, the Little Jews in the west. These semi-autonomous tribal unions had descended from the Kazakh Khanate, which had emerged in the 15th century after breaking away from the Uzbek Khanate. The Kazakhs maintained a nomadic lifestyle, herding livestock across the steppes and engaging in both intertribal alliances and conflicts. However, by the early 18th century, they faced a growing external threat, the Dzungar Khanate, a powerful Mongol state to the east, seeking protection from the Russian Empire under mounting pressure from Dzungar raids and internal instability. The Little Jews Khan Abul Kher sought military support from the Russian Empire. In 1731, he pledged allegiance to the Russian Tsarina Anna Ivanovna, marking the beginning of Russian influence in Kazakh affairs. The other Zhuzes followed suit over the next few decades, forming protectorate agreements with Russia. Initially, these arrangements allowed the Kazakh leaders to retain autonomy while receiving military protection. However, the Russian Empire had broader ambitions. Gradual expansion and full annexation from the mid-18th to the late 19th century. Russia steadily expanded its control over Kazakh territory. The process included establishing forts and garrisons along trade routes and rivers, undermining the authority of local khans and replacing them with Russian administrators, imposing taxes and new legal systems on the nomadic population, encouraging Russian and Slavic settlers to colonize the steppes by 1822. The Russian Empire had abolished the Khanate system in the Middle Jews, and by 1847, the Great Jews had also fallen under Russian control. The Kazakh steppe was fully incorporated into the Russian Empire by the 1860s, reorganized into administrative districts. Resistance and rebellion, not all Kazakhs accepted Russian domination passively. Several rebellions and uprisings broke out in protest of land seizures, increased taxation, and cultural suppression. The most notable was the Kenessary Kassymov Rebellion 1837 to 1847. Kenessary, a descendant of the Kazakh Khans, led a broad anti-colonial resistance to restore the Khanate and expel Russian influence. Though initially successful in rallying support, he was eventually defeated and killed. Despite the failure of such revolts, they became enduring symbols of Kazakh resistance and national identity. Impact on Kazakh society. The annexation of Kazakhstan by the Russian Empire had profound consequences. Nomadic life declined, as traditional migration routes were restricted and agriculture was promoted. Islamic institutions were monitored and weakened by imperial authorities. Russian language and Orthodox Christianity gained prominence through education and administration. Demographic changes occurred as Russian, Ukrainian, and Tatar settlers moved into Kazakh lands, creating tensions and marginalizing indigenous populations, while some Kazakhs adapted to the new system by joining the military or civil service. Many experienced loss of land, cultural erosion, and reduced autonomy. The legacy of imperial rule. By the turn of the 20th century, Kazakhstan had been fully absorbed into the Russian imperial framework. The seeds of modern Kazakh identity were already being sown through a combination of resistance movements, intellectual awakening, and exposure to Russian reforms and education. This period of imperial annexation laid the groundwork for later events, including Soviet collectivization, the rise of Kazakh nationalism, and eventually Kazakhstan's independence in 1991, the annexation of Kazakhstan by the Russian Empire was not a single event but a complex, decades-long process marked by diplomacy, force, and resistance. It brought new infrastructure, trade networks, and administrative systems, but also widespread disruption, cultural loss, and social upheaval. Today, this chapter of history remains a crucial part of Kazakhstan's national story, shaping how the country views its past, its neighbors, and its path forward.